Welcome to the second module of Communication Research Methodology. In this module, we'll be looking at the role of theory and paradigms. So we'll be looking at the role of theory and the role of research in developing theory and testing theory, and we'll look at two different approaches, the inductive and deductive methods for testing and developing theory. One of the ways that I like to describe the inductive versus deductive approach is looking at the general versus specific. So the general is the theoretical explanation and the specific is the data that you might collect in order to test that theory. So the inductive approach goes from specific to general, so starts with looking at data and moves towards a general explanation or a theoretical explanation. Whereas the deductive approach starts with the general, with that theoretical explanation, and then looks for specifics or data to support that general explanation. So we'll explore those two different ways of testing and developing theory. And we'll look at the quantitative and qualitative approaches. So often qualitative research is associated with the inductive approach, and quantitative research is often associated with the deductive approach to theory testing. Then we'll move on and talk about different paradigms that characterize communication research. And paradigms are sort of another way of saying your point of view or your perspective for understanding the world, in this case, understanding communication. So it sort of determines the type of data that you collect and the questions that you ask about communication. So the first paradigm that we'll discuss is the social scientific or positivist paradigm. So this particular paradigm looks at the role of hypotheses, the nature of reality. So here reality is something that is sort of objectively out in the world, and is something through the social scientific method that we can discover. So whether that's a certain way of communication, resolving conflict, of developing intimacy in relationships, the social scientific or positivist paradigm believes that there is an objective method that can be used to uncover that reality. Then the interpretivist paradigm is more associated with qualitative research and looks at subjectivity. And so what's the role of the subjective role of the researcher, and how might that researcher be involved in interpreting reality, interpreting what he or she is seeing out in the world. So we'll look at the role of hermeneutics, phenomenology, symbolic interactionism, all of which are associated with the interpretivist paradigm. Then the third paradigm that we'll look at is the critical paradigm. So this paradigm often looks at power and the influences of power in terms of communication. And so we look at Marxism, postmodernism, queer theory, feminist theory. All are critical perspectives that look at how can we understand the role of power in terms of influence in communication behavior. So the tasks associated with Module 2 are to read Chapter 2 in the textbook, review the lessons in Module 2 that you'll find in Blackboard, complete quizzes 3, 4, and 5, post your comments to the VoiceThread discussion forum, and post to the module blog. As always, if you have any questions, please get in touch.